Good morning. We're going to start off our day with a hypothetical scenario. So I'm going to ask you to stretch your imagination and envision this world. You're at a tech conference. I know, stretch your imagination. And people keep showing these things on a screen that look wicked cool that you'll be able to take advantage just as soon as you can update your operating system. Believe it or not, that actually happens in real life. Shockingly. That's what we want to talk about. Most of you think you probably came to attend a session. We are not delivering a session here today. We are starting a revolution here today. We need to change the way we think about how to get and stay modern. We have a massive uphill battle because we keep running into the if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. That phrase means nothing in software because it is broke. Let's take a look at some examples of ways in which software might be broken today. This is a warning I got. This is literally in the past week the warnings I've gotten. The App Compat toolkit is not compatible. That might be broken. Then there's this one. Windows Error Reporting is reporting that Windows Error Reporting doesn't work. Because you know what? Something happened. And this was just a couple weeks ago. Oh, I can't wait to put my credit card in that machine. Well, hold on. It's professional. So that makes it okay. And then, of course, gratuitously for everyone who wasn't here the other day, we were talking about my shoes beforehand. Those are the shoes. Someone decided to tweet that. Software is broken and needs to be maintained. I can't just build it once and let it stand forever. I love to use metaphor. I'm going to pull one out here because it really sort of describes how the mentality affects what we do. Right? We want to build software once and let it run as long as it will go, as if it's a capital asset. And that totally reflects itself in how we get funding for projects. Oh, I've got $1 million to build this software application. Zero budgeted to support it afterwards. Zero budgeted to maintain it, update it. I'm just going to build it once because that's never going to go south. Imagine if we did that in the other assets we had. Hey, we need a new corporate headquarters. Let's build a building, a brand new building. Let's not hire a janitor. Let's just let the bathrooms, right, they'll do what they will, right, and eventually they'll get so disgusting that we'll just blow up the building and build a new building. It turns out that's a lot more expensive than just cleaning your bathrooms. And we need to change that mindset. Software is something we need to start addressing and modernizing and to help us get more agile. But in order to be successful, we need to understand the human psychology behind how we interact with change, how we interact with software. And it is a balance between neophilia and neophobia, the fear or love of things that are new. People like things to be new to some extent, but they also like them to be the same. They want to have some balance. And what they really want is to have a feeling that they have the most advanced yet acceptable implementation of the thing that they want. It's bold and yet instantly comprehensible. Think about that. And I remember the conversations we had back in the Windows 8 days, right? If you remember that. the great outpouring of love that happened around the new start menu. And everyone's like, ah, this is the best start menu, right? Oh, that's not what you guys heard? Right? A challenge because it was new and different. And it was interesting because it was at about that same time that you started to have things like iPads show up. Well, that was different, but it was instantly comprehensible. And we need to continue to strike that balance because it turns out that what users and administrators and humans want is a sense of fluency. People want to feel like they know what they're doing. And I think we've ignored that. Like in the App Compat world, and I bear some of the responsibility. I owned Enterprise App Compat between 2006 and 2012 for Windows and for the browser. And we talked a great technical story, and I'm sure if you've been dealing with App Compat for a while, you probably have come across some of the technical demos. Fair warning, right? This is a 200-level session. There's not a lot of technical demos on how to fix stuff. That content exists. I can point you to that. There's a baseline of expectation. 200 level should be, probably mostly slides. 300 level, your expectation should be some demo, maybe a little code. 400 level, assembler. Demand that of every presenter. And completely crucify them on the scores if they don't meet that bar. We looked at the technical aspect of getting there and not the aspect of how do I make people feel comfortable? How do I make the process feel comfortable? And it is because of that what is everyone doing today in preparation for Windows 10? Pulling out the old playbook that they used to get to Windows 7. Let's do that again because I'm fluent in that. I know how to do that. It's comfortable and familiar and happy and warm. And all those tools don't always do exactly what I want. So let's look at some of the impact of some of the approaches we used historically. One of the things that really resonated in the transition off of Windows XP was the use of static analysis tools. Why did that resonate with people? Because it made people feel good. It resonated with their sense of how the world should be. Testing everything seems like the right thing to do. So we do that. And automation. That's always good. You're doing both. That's like a double play. That's amazing. It feels very comfortable. If we're going to break that, we have to have a good reason, right? And the fact that it's comfortable doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Let's do some math. Who can explain that to me? Steve. This is the Bayesian algorithm for forward predictive accuracy. And this is what we have to do when we think about, hey, what am I actually going to do in terms of the ability to analyze and test everything? Because this is something we've wanted for a long time. We want to test everything. We want to remove all risk. That's the ideal, right? Make all risk go away, and I make all risk going away by testing everything, every scenario, every single last bit. But static analysis automates that. That's great. Static analysis, however, is statistical in nature. It's not always right. It, in fact, can't be always right. It is mathematically impossible for it to be always right. So being statistical, what was the accuracy rate that we saw coming off of Windows XP and moving to Windows 10 if you were doing that move, which, yes, some people are actually doing? In fact, true story, when you want to say what would make the App Compat Guy's phone ring, if you are on the board of directors at Microsoft and you have a, let's say, football stadium, and the software that opens the roof on said football stadium runs Windows 98, someone will give you my phone number directly without asking me. Those things are still out there. So if I'm moving forward, right, XP to Windows 10, and I use static analysis tools, how helpful is that going to be? And the data indicates that at the portfolio level, I'm going to be accurate 85% of the time, which is actually a really good number for building a budget on. Now I can allocate. I have enough money to move forward with this. I know how much to allocate, how many things are going to fail. If I want to look at one particular piece of software, that's where I use the Bayesian algorithm to determine how much am I able to predict in a single instance. And that turns out to be 59% accurate. Still better than flipping a coin. But if your plan is no human's ever going to have to look at it, this will find it all, I'm going to be wrong a fair number of times at the individual level. Great for budgeting, not as good for moving all of the other knobs. I would still leverage approach because it moves a lot of the low-hanging fruit out of the way. Very, very effective. I'm not saying don't do it. Here, I think it makes statistical sense. But because that worked good enough coming off of XP, I then look at Windows 7 to Windows 10. What's the potential risk I'm going to face there? Well, it's right at the portfolio 60% accuracy. If I tell you 50 of your things are going to break, right, plus or minus some variation in terms of what's actually going to break. Not as good as 85, clearly. The thing is, far fewer things are going to actually break. So the individual predictive accuracy is 12%. If I just point a tool at a piece of software, it's going to be wrong 88% of the time. Which is probably not what I expect of the automation tool that makes my life easy. Portfolio, good, gives me a better budget. Individual, removes some low-hanging fruit, but not all of it. If I'm moving between builds of Windows 10, at a portfolio level today, we're observing it being right about 6% of the time, which means it is only right at the individual app level, a fraction of a percent. Suddenly, I probably don't feel like shelling out a lot of money. Like, oh, you're wrong more than 99% of the time. I think I'll take a pass on that. It doesn't make mathematical sense, yet it's comfortable. We want to feel like we're in our comfort zone and that we're super hyper accurate, but that's very difficult to do. The more we predict out, the more we have the roadmap, right, the more effort I spend building something out. It really is, in essence, trying to oversimplify and get perfect knowledge, which I can't get. Perfect knowledge. If I were to want to build the world's most perfect map, it would be life-size, because that would elide no details whatsoever. It would capture every single inch of everything. However, a life-size map of the world is kind of big and not useful because of its size. The complexity of the world of our software environment means that we need to be smart about our simplification. We cannot continue to have the mindset of, I must know it all before I can do anything. Instead, we've got to simplify it down to what makes sense for us. We need to change the old process. The old process we had was building that life-size map. This is the 18 months of churning through. Collect, analyze, and remediate. It was actually funny because Suma Saganagauda, who designed Act 5.0 back for the Windows Vista days, came up with this taxonomy back when she built it. And she's here at the event. She actually subsequently went on and did IoT for a while and now owns the servicing stack in Windows. And she's down in the expo area if you want to meet her and talk about old times or servicing or anything there. She had forgotten all about this. She's like, oh yeah, but this is the taxonomy most customers use. Let me go find it all. Which, if you think about it, is kind of remarkable. Like, oh, I need to manage my software risk. I wonder what software I have. How do you run a business like that? And it turns out, pretty much we all do. So it clearly works, not knowing, but here I'm like, oh, no, actually, now I need to find it out. I need to know perfect knowledge here. I'll look at it all, I'll fix what's broken, and then I'll move. I'll build that life-size map and manage that, right, so that I don't get into trouble. Doesn't matter how much it costs. That thinking is problematic. I see it in security all the time, too. In fact, I flat out asked one of my colleagues, they were what I call the tinfoil hat persona. Described him perfectly well. I said, would you spend $1 billion to mitigate a $1 million risk to the business. He's like, oh, hell yes. Really? It's math again. We need to figure out how to upgrade more and test less. How many of you run iPhones? Actually, round of applause so people in the thing. I'm not trying to advocate shell out there. Fair number of people. How many of you went out and bought a test iPhone to upgrade to iOS 11 and install all your stuff and make sure it works before you hit update to iOS 11? You mostly, when your phone asks, you go, oh, okay. We need to get more into that mindset, but do it based on risk. Obviously, our personal risk is far less than the risk of an entire business if I own it. But I want to understand what that risk is, because the risk isn't what it used to be. If you were moving from Windows XP to Windows 7, on average, you could expect 21% of your applications to fail and have to require some form of touch to move forward. 21%. Which is kind of a lot, right? When 1 out of 5 things breaks, you think about looking around a little bit more, right? So, that's kind of enough to justify doing some extra work. On average, if you are moving from Windows 7 to Windows 10, you can expect just under 2% of your stuff, on average, to fail. And that's on average, right? So, as Mark Twain once said, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics in that order. Right? You could get very unlucky. Like that 21% also includes customers who would have, yeah, I had 2% fail. I had one customer that had a 100% failure rate because they had a packaging standard that required them to inject a custom action, and that custom action wasn't compatible, so nothing installed. 100% failure rate. Fortunately, we could then script it and just remove that custom action from everything in Configuration Manager, and then, boom, now they're back into normal territory. But that happens. The average is 2%, and we're kind of coming off the early adopters curve and entering sort of early mainstream, right? So just to be honest, right, it used to be, actually it was a little bit higher. It was above 2% on the earliest of early adopters, right? And I would have expected it to be different. I would have expected the mainstream to be higher than the early adopters, because if you are deploying aggressively a version of Windows even before we finalize it, chances are you're better at managing your software forward and keeping it modern. But what we're actually seeing is it's dropped a tiny bit since we've started to go mainstream. So it's an order of magnitude less likely to impact you than what we saw in the transition off of XP. 20% drop to 2%, yet we're managing risk in exactly the same way because it feels comfortable to us. Coming off of Windows 8, it's a fraction of a percent. Now, why, may you ask, is it different from Windows 7? Because we all heard Steven Stanofsky say if it works on Windows 7, it works on Windows 8. I know I heard that because as soon as he said that in the keynote at this event a few years ago, my Twitter handle literally exploded. What are you going to do now? Now that we don't need you anymore. What's the difference? The difference is, starting in Windows 8.1, we looked and said, what's the biggest source of challenges that we have moving forward? It's the applications that go, hey, what version of Windows are you? And we answer, and it's like, oh, I don't know you. I'm not going to run. Like a petulant child. So what did we start doing in Windows 8.1? Hey, what version of Windows are you? I'm 8.0. You ask Windows 10, hey, what version of Windows are you? I'm 8.0. We lie by default. So all of your checks to see, are you actually Windows 7, yes or no? Those will get told 8. They'll say, oh, okay, that's the almost 2% difference is version checks, which, if you think about it, is a little bit crazy. As a developer, are you lacking that much trust in your IT staff that you're like, I'm going to check every time I run to make sure they haven't changed anything around here. Every time you launch me, I'm going to execute code, make sure they haven't rolled back to NT4. Those guys might do that. They're a little bit unpredictable. Every single launch. In fact, to date, the one compatibility issue that I have hit on Windows 10, right, and I feel fortunate, right, because if I hit a compatibility issue, what do? Well, I just fix it, right, was Quicken. Why did Quicken fail? Nothing to do with how Quicken works. Quicken worked just fine. Quicken really, really, really wanted the .NET Framework 4.6. We revved it to 4.7. It said, oh, that's not going to do, and didn't run. Oh, I can't do it. You don't have 4.6. Go get it. Because we have a systematic problem, ladies and gentlemen, that you as IT professionals are not giving your developers keyboards that include a greater than key. So we need you to buy some of those. Really, really important. Build to build, the story gets even better, right? Going off of threshold 1 to threshold 2 to redstone 1 to redstone 2, right? That's the one change that had an impact. It was a pretty minor impact. So I'm dealing with a very different risk profile that I need to handle according to the amount of actual risk that I'm facing. I need to change my behavior. So I want to do it in a way that brings fluency, that feels familiar, that feels comfortable. And here's what I would like to propose that we should start doing and how we should start thinking. Internally, we're developing mechanisms to distribute and deploy software. Why don't we run our corporate app store like a real app store? We know how that works. Let's follow in that model. So let's kind of play through that scenario, because this is the thing I think we have to do. The reality is progress isn't held back by apps, by and large. Not in today's world. It's fractions of a percent. Apps are our excuse for holding back progress. And that's what we've got to shift around. We need to invert our current way of thinking. We need to have a revolution. A whole new mindset. Corporate app stores have a very specific way of updating software. It's not build once, run forever. It's start to get things on a regular cadence. Now, it's been challenged because we've had one of the most stable platforms for applications in the history of computing. Think about it. I got an app that ran on Windows 98 running on Windows 10 a week and a half ago. I have Microsoft Bob running on 32-bit Windows 10. Some of our platforms have had really long durability. Visual Basic 6 represents an average of 50% of the software running in an enterprise customer today. Not that it's all VB6, but it has some aspects that are built in VB6. Half of all software running in enterprises today has VB6. By the way, VB6 shipped in 1998. End of support for the runtime environment came in 2008. That was nearly 10 years ago, and it's still half. That's how successful that platform was, and it still runs today. The Visual Basic 6 runtime still ships in Windows. Visual Basic 6 lived longer than Buddy Holly. Longer than the Betamax, longer than Windows XP was around. And you start comparing it to other platforms, and it's like, I get 3 months of support on browsers these days. I can write for VB6, and it'll be there, gosh, forever. It's been really stable, and that stability has been a strength, but it also has our minds going, yeah, I can build it, and they'll keep that running forever. I can leave it just sit there. And the risk we face is that we start to lose knowledge. And there's been a couple of famous, like we always think like, hey, human knowledge is forever perpetually growing. And that's not true if we don't find a way of keeping the knowledge alive. A great example recently was FogBank. How many of you have heard the story of FogBank? Okay, I have no idea what FogBank actually is. No one does. It's highly classified. But apparently you can't make a nuclear bomb without it. And so we were producing it back when we were creating lots of nuclear weapons. We were, okay, here's how we make it. And it was tribal knowledge. It's so highly classified, they didn't want to sort of write it down. And I guess, thank goodness, they didn't write it down and make it easy, right? Because we can see how good we are at keeping secrets these days. I'm kind of rather, maybe in a notebook, but don't type it onto a computer. We made it until 1989, then we stopped. And in 2008, we're like, oh, yeah, we need to refresh these things. Like, even if we don't add more nuclear warheads, right? I'm not trying to take either a pacifist or a, what's the opposite of pacifist? Militarist, right? I'm not trying to cast a value judgment on whether or not you should, but certainly, right, for maintenance, right, not only do I believe in cleaning bathrooms, I believe in making sure that your nuclear weapons don't accidentally explode. That's important to me. So they went to, okay, well, we need some more FogBank. And then they're looking, okay, what's FogBank? I don't know, ask Joe. Joe who died 3 years ago? All right, Bill. Bill who died 7 years ago? John. Where's John? No one knew. They had to reverse engineer a critical ingredient and rebuild that knowledge from scratch. The pyramids. If you had to go and build the pyramids and you didn't get modern construction tools, could you figure it out? Because those guys did thousands of years ago, and we've forgotten how we do that. I have one customer who has a piece of software very much like that. It's a piece of software that starts off the scheduling process in a school district in one of the largest school districts in the nation. A key ingredient of that process. The most modern operating system it runs on is DOS 2. It breaks in 3. They have an old IBM keyboard, like the clackety-clack IBM PCs from back in the day, big orange switch on the side, that they go in once a year, cross their fingers, right, light a few candles, flick the switch, and every year so far, that sucker's turned on. They have that. They do not have any source code. They have a memory dump of what it looks like when it's running, and some budget set aside. For the 1 year that thing doesn't start up, we're paying someone a lot of money to reverse engineer this. When we just let our software ride and don't pay attention to us, we incur organizational risk. There is always risk in standing still. I need to budget for updates, for maintenance, for knowledge. And I love this quote. This is a quote for people who are going for the public app store. Again, we're totally taking an idea so that it's familiar. If you don't feel you can be committed to updating your app at least once a month, seriously reconsider even building an app. Once a month might be a bit extreme in the enterprise. I get that. But replace that with once a year, once every 6 months, something that's reasonable. Invest in a capability that uses software instead of investing in a project that creates a software artifact that you hope works forever. It's a different way of thinking about your software, and as a result helps you move forward. Then you can start to have a conversation, because it's fascinating if we think about how we've ended up in the position we're in today. Think about what you're doing if you're validating compatibility for moving forward. Collect, analyze, or meet it. Go find everything that's out there. Literally means if anyone, anywhere in your organization manages to get anything installed by any mechanism, you promise to keep that working between now and the end of time. You've given them an insurance policy, which is fascinating how that works. Because it's basically this. It would be, to use metaphor again, my house burns down. I call up Allstate or State Farm or AIG or some insurance company, and I say, hey, my house burned down, send me a check to build a new house. The insurance company is probably going to tell me, who the hell are you? I see no record of you paying a premium. We're not going to send you money to rebuild your house. But we have people just installing software one time somewhere, and no matter what happens, you're paying the cost of fixing it. That's a little crazy. We need to get them on the roadmap and say, yeah, you can put it in here. Here are the rules that we're going to do. The process also generally tends to lead to better software outcomes. It's the whole DevOps process of, I just want to iteratively build stuff. Not go in once, get a thing, and hope it works. Right? That's the old waterfall method of building stuff, which is laden with problems, but to instead think of smaller chunks, right? Observe, orient, decide, act, take an action, make a small action, move forward some way, and then gauge, was I successful? Right? Was it good? Was it indifferent? Was it bad? So I can start failing fast, right? This iterative process so I can keep building more and more iterations on my software. Instead of one, I have nothing, 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 everything. I'm reminded of the opposite of this process. A customer of mine that was going to a whole brand new way of running their business on top of SAP in a project that lasted 7 years. So for 7 years, they had nothing to show for it. And then suddenly, they had a full product that had everything incorporated inside of it. Somewhat inconveniently, it was all written on top of a now 7-year-old version of SAP that was no longer supported. So we're re-breaking it down, right? We're trying to change our culture and our developer culture, and we need to collaborate and partner. We need to think about ways to understand and communicate and collaborate so that we get more improvement over time, more risk over time, take advantage of the platform more over time. Not build once. It's a whole different way of budgeting and of managing change. So that's a hard one, but it's a familiar one. This is the kind of change we need to bring our customers through. Let's talk about compatibility, right? How are we going to kind of get started? I want to give it a crisp definition so we understand exactly what we mean. To be compatible with a version of the OS means that you have no bugs on the platform you want that will stop you from getting your work done. We need to have a crisp definition because it can't say it's perfect. I don't want to go and try and prove that anything is perfect. In fact, I can't because of this jerk. It's Alan Turing, who proved in 1936 that we can never know for sure whether or not software has bugs. It is mathematically impossible. We change the way we think. We understand what compatible is, and then we think about the alternate business definition of compatible. Because whether or not it works does not necessarily mean the vendor will agree that it works if I've not pivoted. This is actually, to me, one of the most powerful things about the transition to software as a service, is that now my vendor is constantly thinking, how do I deliver more value? How do I deliver more value? I haven't sold it to you once and had a paycheck. I instead think about, hey, I'm going to continue investing and making sure that this stays modern, stays up to date, and meets your expectations. I look forward to that in a lot of the products that I have. Services organizations, if you bring in vendors to help you, haven't fully pivoted if they're developing in-house software that you keep. Because think about the model by which we build software if you're in consulting. How do we build it? You give us all the money up front, and we'll build it. So you're taking all the risk. And then when it's done, hopefully it'll have some value. I don't know. We're out of here. We've got our money. That's something to pivot. We need to understand what's supported, and we need to start to think of my apps coming as a service, not as a static point in time that I have to manage and look after. The transformational change, fundamentally different from what we're used to. It is, what is it? That is the lamest thing I've ever heard. Come on. All right, I know it's early. It's a revolution. We're trying to run our corporate app store like a real app store. We're going to take it seriously. We're going to build the business case for why it makes sense. So we have to handle updates. To get there, though, we have to modernize. We need to look at what we have and understand, does that meet the needs and expectations of what we want? Right? Great example of that is in the web. On the web, I can just sit there and maintain something that's super, super simple, super collaborative, or I can start to take advantage of new capabilities in the browser. Things that I couldn't do before. Think about what you can do in a browser today because of HTML5 that you could not do 10 years ago. 10 years ago, would you have imagined that remote desktop would have a browser client without a plugin? That's actually possible now because of the platform. But I do have to build to it. But it's critical that I think about building to it. If I follow the treasure map and get all the way to the treasure, once I get to the point where X marks the spot, I don't actually gain value until I start to dig. Go get the treasure and think about how we start to derive benefit. Now, the benefit, I think we need to have a bit more of an open mind. This is another one of my favorite quotes. I have a few, right, and the deck should be posted so you can steal them and copy them and use them to your heart's content. Conservative accountants who assign zero values to many intangible benefits prefer being precisely wrong to being vaguely right. There is value in having experiences that translate to new scenarios. Right, so not only is it, hey, let's do cool HTML5 stuff so I can do remote desktop in a browser, what other kinds of scenarios would people assign value to? Would there be value in having your web-based application work on your phone? So work in Chrome mobile or Safari mobile. Or I guess at this conference, there are the only people on planet Earth who are running Windows Mobile, so maybe Edge Mobile. Yes. Now, can I quantify that? Right? Because that's sort of the hard question, right? When people say, oh yeah, your productivity is going to go up so much, right? You're going to save money. We throw that around too easily, right? You're going to save money. And a CFO is like, great! Who do I get to fire? To which your answer is, Steve. But I do need to think about what that means. I keep picking on you, Steve. You're right there, so.
Okay, they helped me update my LinkedIn profile earlier.
There are all kinds, when we start thinking about modernizing and catching up to date, what are the things we want to be mindful of? Things can be faster. I can start to reduce. Removing the number of third parties that have to cooperate is a major trend in technology today. I work primarily in cybersecurity, and that's a huge movement that we've been seeing because we're really going through a transition in that space from best of breed. Here are all of the checkboxes, and I'm going to write the very best thing on the market next to it, all those checkboxes, and throw them all together and hope for the best, which shockingly does not always work out well. They don't always play nice once you put them in the same sandbox. Moving from best of breed to best of suite. These things play nicely together, have minimal overhead, and do basically 80% of what I need. And the other 20%, I probably didn't really need. It sounded good. Boy, it makes a great marketing brochure. How many software decisions are made upon a great marketing brochure and not a great user or administrative experience? Modern software can have a far better user and administrative experience. An HTML5 browser-based application that doesn't require me to install ActiveX controls on 20,000 desktops is a better administrative experience. I can create whole new user experiences that feel modern. I've heard this feedback as well. That was actually one of my favorite overheard conversations. There's actually been two. I'll digress on the other one. It's not really relevant, but it's a wonderful conversation that I'll share. So one conversation I had a customer where we were moving them off of XP to Windows 7, and they were one of those customers that was like, yeah, end of support's in like a couple weeks, right? Can you help us get going? And the motivation, what finally got them to go, was that one of their brand new college hires came in and said, hey, I just started here. Walked into the CIO's office, right? This is a millennial for you, right? I'm not anti-millennial anyway, but when I was that age, I didn't have the cojones to go do that. I wasn't walking, to the CIO's office. And here's what he said. He walked in there and he's like, hi, I'm Joe. Right, listen, you're using Windows XP today, right? I haven't used Windows XP since I was in the 4th grade. So if you're going to make me learn this new thing, you need to provide some training materials on this antique. And the CIO didn't fire the guy, which is what I would have been terrified of. He was like, all right, he did give him some coaching of probably not the best delivery, but your point is well taken. Kind of took a shine to the guy, and he was like, then he went out there, and he's like, all right, you know what? We don't look like what we look at home. We underestimate the value of familiarity. Similarly with security behaviors. Actually, one of the interviews I was listening to recently was talking to the folks who have YubiKey, and like YubiKey can be used for personal as well as business. A business can decide to turn off the personal functionality if they want to, but why the heck would you? Because if you can get people getting more and more accustomed to doing the right secure thing at home, you're going to reinforce the behavior. And it will become natural. They will become fluent. Why on earth would you break the path, the march to fluency? It doesn't make sense. User experiences that feel familiar with in modern have value for keeping people productive and for making people feel valued. I had a customer of mine that was, anyone from Australia? No? Couple? Hands don't work. People, this is recording here. So we've got one Aussie here. Right? So there's an organization in Australia that in order to pursue this chase of exceptional user experience, gave everyone in the company a MacBook Pro, because MacBook Pros were cool. That little glowing logo on the coffee table looks great. Now, of course, they didn't have software written for Mac OS, so they were all running Windows XP with a boot time that, I kid you not, 5 minutes and 30 seconds tops. That was the best you could ever get. 5.5 minutes to boot up. Come in, start your computer, go get coffee, go luggage shopping, adopt a couple kids, come back, your machine's booted up. Drive those user experiences. They can also be cheaper and easier to maintain. So the other story I wanted to share with you that's not really relevant to this list, but it's just a great story when it comes to modernization. An overheard conversation, I was outside of Rich Kaplan's office, who used to run our customer and partner experience. He was our corporate VP, just responsible for making sure you're happy, because we have that job. There's someone whose job it is to make sure you're happy all the time. So a customer came in and was meeting with him, right? I was after this, and he was screaming. He's like, how can you be charging me $15 million a year for this custom support? This is highway robbery. You've got to do something better. That's ridiculous. So Rich yelled back, I don't want your money. Get off of NT4. So we can create these new compelling experiences. I want to give you an example, a super boring example, that nonetheless actually adds up to value. Let's say I'm dealing with a web-based app, right? HTML5 is more terse than HTML4. So just updating something that I wrote a long time ago, let's look at what's going to happen with nothing but a skeleton page. This is a skeleton HTML web page. Incidentally, I'm realizing at this very moment that I said 200 levels shouldn't have code, so we just became 300 level because there's code on the screen, technically. It's not assembler, though, so it's not 400. Here's what a skeleton... Oh, I can do assembler. Would you not come to my session on Tuesday? Skeleton page, nothing on there, and this is what it takes just to put out there and say hello world. Now let's, step by step, convert this to HTML5. So, all right, I can change that doc type. So that's going to go from that long one to a lot shorter one, right? Longer, shorter. And, oh, wow, that HTML declaration, that's got a lot of extra characters in it. Let's just say it's HTML and it's in English. And, oh, what's the content type? Well, let's shorten that down, right? Meta car set equals this. Oh, my style sheet reference. Oh, that's a lot of words there, too. Let's shrink that down. And we end up here from there. A difference, 412, dropping down to 188 characters. Now, what does that mean? Let's bring up one of my favorite demo tools, the calculator. So I'm going to go from 412 to 188, a difference of 224 characters, 224 bytes streaming across my network. Now, let's say a page gets used all day by someone in a role. So they're clicking on it. Maybe on average they hit it, what, 20 times an hour, times 8 hours a day, right? So that many bytes over the course of the day per person. And let's say it's used by 10,000 people. So that many bytes going over the network every single day, right? And they work 5 days a week, and they work 50 weeks a year, right? Because we don't have much vacation, or we're a startup. We can get 2 weeks of vacation. We have this many completely useless bytes of data going over the network every single day, adding no value. And that's 20 page views an hour, which means we are very unproductive people. Right, let's multiply it by 5, and now we're 100 an hour, right? That many bytes. And you're like, yeah, that's one app. And I'm paying for that many extra bytes. Because bandwidth, it turns out, isn't free. If you pay the bandwidth bill, you're like, wait, we're just throwing that away for absolutely no reason? World's most boring business justification. But it's real money. And we want to do that transition. We want to start doing that migration so that we can start to recoup that investment. Sorry, I'm just teeing something else up. Have a little bit of fun. We need to have a revolution. We need to change the way we think. We need to start talking in business context. And make sure people know why we're doing something. And think outside the box. Don't just think that people will be more productive. That's a soft cost. And it matters, but it doesn't matter to everybody. Start to quantify. Look for it. Hey, here's what we're actually going to do. I can measure. This is one of the beautiful things if you've been using Office 365 lately. I know we at Microsoft get an email every week saying, here's who you collaborated with the most, right? The whole Office graph, right? Here's how much actual focus time you got, so time when you didn't have scheduled in meetings. I get frustrated that they also track how much time I'm in a meeting when I'm actually doing other work. We track that. Like, here's when you weren't paying attention to meetings. How many after-hours things you did. You could actually measure that. Like, hey, people do more work after hours if we light up this capability. It's measurable. We have telemetry in more and more places. We can quantify. People are more productive. They're coming in. They're happier. Or maybe we want to manage that number down. It depends, I guess, on how mercenary we are. I want people going home and relaxing. I've made them more productive. Now I don't have burnout rates. And I can start to look at attrition rates. I mean, I can start to bring in all of these factors around these investments that I make after I start to run my corporate app store like a real app store. I want to think about how I onboard into this new construct. Because before, it's however you can install it is fine. Whatever you can do, wherever you can go. What I want to posit is that we should have a new taxonomy about how we think of software. Managed, supported, unsupported, and banned. 4 categories. Simple taxonomy to think about what's your accountability going to be. Managed software is software that you put yourself on the hook for to keep working. You're going to manage it. You're going to deploy it. You're on board. Supported, next category down. You're welcome to have it. I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to promise to test it. I have no commitments on compatibility, but totally fine to use. And if you have a problem, give us a call. We'll help you out. Unsupported. Totally welcome to run it. Everything's fine. If you have a problem, you're on your own. Don't call us. Banned, I'm actively going to try and stop from running in the first place. And if I take this attitude of, hey, yeah, you're unsupported, right? We're not going to pull it off your system, but you can't call us. We're not going to test it first. If you're worried about it, you got to figure out some way of keeping it modern. That's on you. You've side-loaded it, if you will, in our organization. Supported, also side-loaded. Managed, pushed down, and organized as we move everything down and simplify. So we want to look at how do we manage things into this taxonomy and only push out the things we explicitly decide to manage and not take on the same responsibility for everything else. We need to, as we onboard into this mindset, take a really hard look at, do we have technical debt that we need to pay back? Did we decide UAC, I don't see that having a future, let's turn that off. Because that doesn't make you happy on Windows 10. Right? For a couple reasons. Number one, modern apps don't work. And you're like, okay, we don't have Angry Birds, which as far as I can tell is the only modern app that people actually run. Edge is a modern app. Calc.exe is a modern app, right? But it's not like that's pervasive in the organization because most people aren't already there. The other thing from a technical risk side, we literally do 0 testing with UAC disabled. We have no idea what happens and quite honestly don't care. So if you run into a problem, you're kind of on your own. And I will say this, some weird stuff happens. For example, in IE, if you right-click and say Open in New Tab, with UAC disabled, for whatever reason, you'll get a new window. It doesn't really break anything. It's just kind of weird. Like, why can't I have a new tab? We don't know what kind of stuff happens. It's untested. And when we think about managing risk, sticking in tested scenarios has a lot of value. I wanted to bring up some numbers because we all love math here. I took just the subset of policies for the Internet Explorer browser and did the mathematics to determine how many different configurations can you possibly put it into. This is that number of permutations. By way of comparison, this is the number of molecules in the observable universe. It turns out we don't have that many test cases for Windows. It also turns out that even if we could optimize our test cases such that every single test could be run in 1 nanosecond, not enough nanoseconds have elapsed since the beginning of time for us to have run this many tests. So am I running with UAC disabled? Did I happen to choose, you know what, I'm just going to take 32-bit Windows 7 because that seems a little bit easier, right? And more, I mean, can you even buy a machine that has less than 4 gigs of RAM today? And that just makes you feel terrible. You're like, yeah, I've got, 16 gigs of RAM and I can see 3 of it. You're like, oh, it's just sitting there, just begging to be used. You'll never, yes, I'll repeat the statement, we'll never need more than 640K of RAM. I still have my Commodore 64, by the way. Proudly displayed, it's in the box. I think it may actually work. So onboarding, I may need to back up and do some testing, right? And one of the things I'll say just pragmatically, we kind of talked at the beginning about how the static analysis approach was amazingly great. The best compatibility technology we saw in the transition off of Windows XP, most of that's still really useful. If I've, in essence, made my Windows 7 deployment very XP-like by flipping off UAC and running 32-bit, because those are things that are relatively easy to detect statically. So maybe I use those tools. Pay back the technical debt. Understand what I decided to do and not just let it ride forever. And the big thing is, and oh, please let us do this, stop checking for version numbers. Trust the IT department to deploy something good. And even if you don't trust them, put it in the installer, put it in the conditions, the launch conditions, right? So it can be edited and removed. Believe it or not, I once sat and watched someone, so speaking of the things you don't want to do with version checks, I watched, oh, Marcus is going to write some code now. The MSI code. If version NT equals 400 or version NT equals 401 or version NT equals 500 or version NT equals 501, then run. So we came across that launch condition. Like, oh, we need to fix that. And I swear, the tech went and did this. And I'm like, really? Better still, why don't we just put that greater than symbol there? Or, better still, are we still worried today that someone's going to deploy NT351? Remove it altogether. We had a conversation going on earlier this week. Versioning problems. That was, did you enjoy it?
Yes.
That's okay. No, I'm just making sure I didn't make you angry or anything. Oh, this guy's a total hack. Mappy. How many of you have heard of Mappy, right? It's a mail API, right? Mappy, so here's a fascinating thing when it comes to version checks, just kind of a little historical thing. In order to increase the compatibility of Windows 7, msiexec.exe is version lied to as Vista. So every custom action that's run inside of an MSI thinks it's running on Vista and will between now and the end of time. It's never going away. So MSIs install as if they're on Vista, right? Party like it's 2006. Now, fortunately, Windows Vista is the single most broadly deployed operating system in the oh, hold on. I'm being told that that's not actually true. It's all lied to. Guess what happens to Mappy if you tell it you're Windows Vista? It crashes. And there's all these Watson crashes that are showing up, and finally someone's like, well, what the hell's going on here, right? Because our engineers, I mean, you know, we have like cold case engineers. Like we'll get workarounds and we'll get customers unblocked, get something going, right? But our engineers, I mean, we're hardcore nerds about it. And they're like, this is going to bug me, right? I'll open up this cold case and take a look. And finally it's like, oh, wait, I get a repro if I version lie. And then it's like, wait, who's version lying? And they're like, well, tell the customer to stop version lying. This actually went on. Tell the customer to stop applying the stupid version lie and it won't crash. And then someone's like, oh, we did that. So then we now have to go and say, whatever you're doing with the version check, can you stop it? And remove the version check. Check for features, not for version numbers. It doesn't work. And importantly, as we're managing our risk, right, we're converting to this new App Store mindset. I want to understand where my brittleness truly lies. Because let's be honest, the way we test our software today pretends that failures are randomly distributed. Like, I don't know what's going to break, so let's test it all and find it all. Now, what really happens? That stupid thing again. Break, 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 break every time. App number 8, that's the big pain. If I'm going to be risk managed, do I want to test all of them? Or, you know what? Let's start with app number 8. Let's see if he's broken again. And then maybe we'll do a couple more to kind of spot check, but the other ones have been rolling fine, right? They've done every single Windows 10 upgrade so far. Not a failure to be seen, right? Maybe we spot check a couple, be risk managed. Test proportionate to the risk that you face, right? Back to the example before. You don't want to spend $1 billion to manage $1 million risk. If the risk of an application failure is half an hour of downtime, while we go back and investigate and fix it for that one user, or for 20 users, or for 30 users, right? And the cost of that lost productivity is $1,000. And I have a testing process that dedicates a solid day to doing it, and I'm paying an engineer $200 an hour for. I just spent $1,600 to manage a $1,000 risk. Better spent looking at number 8. The single biggest predictor we have today on whether an application is going to fail on the next build of Windows is whether or not it failed on previous builds. Before, there's all kinds of predictors. That's what static analysis was based on. Now it's just history. If you are not tracking the history of your application failures, you are completely blind to the single biggest sign of risk. Find the brittleness and manage it out. If someone is selling you crap software, stop buying it. Be aware that it's there and find a new way to go after it. It truly is a new way of thinking. We need to onboard, we need to think strategically about software that we keep modern, that we build smart business cases for, that we update regularly, where we invest in technology as a capability, not in software as a static entity, and truly revolutionize our way to get and stay current, because it matters. Thank you very much.